everything one day will fade away. Leaves, no matter how green, will eventually turn yellow. Mountains, no matter how solid, will crumble and wear down with time. And the human body, no matter how carefully preserved, will return to the earth. No one can go against the nature of impermanence. In the previous 3 stories, we listened together to tales of monks who left behind something extraordinary. They did not seek immortality. They simply lived their lives in practice and mindfulness. And when they passed away, their bodies remained untouched by decay. Not through embalming, not through chemicals, not through mummification, but naturally, perhaps through deep spiritual cultivation, or perhaps through something as simple as grace, environment, and karma. But the story I'm about to share with you today is very different. It is still about incorruptible bodies, still about monks who remain sitting in meditation long after death has come and gone. But this time, they did not wait for death to find them. They chose to meet it directly, in a way unlike anything we've seen before. In the snow-covered mountains of Diwa-Sanzan, in the northern part of Japan, there once lived monks who followed a rare and profound path. They chose not to leave their bodies behind, as nature dictated. Instead, they offered their very own flesh and bones as part of a prayer for the world, for all sentient beings. These monks understood exactly what they were doing. This was not an escape, nor was it a pursuit of fame or mysticism. It was an act of compassion, born from the times they lived in. In those centuries, Japan often faced famine, natural disasters, and relentless suffering. People lived with fear and uncertainty, unsure how to navigate the endless losses life brought. And in the quiet of the mountains, some monks chose to bear this suffering on behalf of others. They walked the path of Sokushinbutsu. They offered their own bodies, not as relics to be worshipped, but as a silent, enduring prayer. They believed that if a monk could remain incorruptible, even in death, it would bring comfort to the people. A symbol that there is something beyond decay. A reminder that compassion, once cultivated to the deepest level, does not disappear with time. These monks were not afraid of death. They did not wish to cling to life. They simply wanted to leave behind a message, a gentle whisper across centuries, that there are other ways to live and other ways to let go. Sokushinbutsu means Buddha in this very body. It is not about becoming a saint. It is not about becoming a god. It is simply about sitting still, letting go completely, and allowing the body to become part of the prayer itself. Silent, unwavering, resting among the snow and stones. Some might hear this and find it too extreme. Others may feel a quiet sense of peace, realizing there were people who chose to live and die entirely for compassion. And perhaps there are no right answers here. No need to argue or to explain, only to listen. Like hearing an old story whispered softly on a winter night. Today I invite you to join me in this journey, not to praise it, not to reject it, but simply to understand another facet of the human spirit, a facet that faces death not with fear, but with surrender. And maybe, as we listen together, we can ask ourselves one quiet question. When the time comes for me to cross that final threshold, how will I choose to walk? Stories of incorruptible monks, whether in Vietnam, Thailand, or Japan, always invite us to pause, to listen quietly with an open heart. But the story of Sokushinbutsu carries a different shade of meaning. It is not a tale of coincidence. It is not a mystical event that happened after death. It is a deliberate journey, a conscious step-by-step path where monks prepared for their own transition over many years. It is a path where the body itself becomes a symbol of transcendence, a quiet reminder to the living that impermanence is real, but so is presence. Who are the Sokushinbutsu? The word Sokushinbutsu means Buddha in this very body. It refers to monks who chose to become incorruptible while they were still alive, not through artificial preservation, not by chance, but by walking a path of deep ascetic devotion, a practice where the body remains intact as a gentle witness to the power of letting go. Sokushinbutsu is not about a single monk or a single event. It is a historical phenomenon, most active during Japan's Heian period 794 to 1185 and Kamakura period 1185-1333. Most of these monks lived and practiced in the northern mountains of Diwa-Sanzan in Yamagata Prefecture. These are mountains wrapped in mist, cloaked in silence, where winters are long and snow falls gently over stone temples. It was in these quiet places that a unique practice was born. The monks followed the path of Shugendo, a blend of Buddhism, Taoism, and local mountain worship. They walked in nature as their teacher, letting every step become part of their spiritual path. Why did they choose this path? The Sokushinbutsu were not chasing immortality. They were not trying to escape death. They were walking directly into the heart of impermanence. At the core of their practice was a simple wish to offer themselves to the world completely. In those times, Japan faced many hardships: famine, natural disasters, illness. These weighed heavily on the people. Fear was a part of daily life. The monks believed that by preserving their bodies, they could remain with the living. Their stillness would become a silent prayer for peace. Their presence, through the centuries, would offer comfort to those still struggling. This was not about avoiding death. It was about transcending it by turning the body itself into an offering of compassion. The process of transformation. The journey toward Sokushinbutsu was long and gentle, but also profoundly demanding. It required years of discipline and a willingness to let go of everything. The first stage was Mokujikigyo, living only on what the mountains provided. No rice, no grains, only wild nuts, pine needles, roots, and the bark of trees. Day after day, year after year, the monks gathered their food from the forest, not to punish the body, but to purify it. By letting go of excess weight, by reducing what the body depended on, they prepared for the next step in their practice. It was a cleansing both inside and out. When their bodies had become light and dry, they moved to the next stage. They drank small amounts of urushi sap, the lacquer sap used in Japanese woodwork. For most people, urushi is poisonous, but for the monks, it was part of their preparation. They believed the sap would help prevent bacterial decay, slowly changing the body from the inside. It was a gentle way to care for their transition so that after the breath stopped, the body would remain whole. And then came the final step, entering seclusion. The monks would sit in a small stone chamber, sometimes beneath the earth, sometimes in the side of a mountain. They sat in the lotus position, completely still. A thin bamboo tube allowed them to breathe. Next to them was a small bell. Each day, they rang the bell once. As long as the bell sounded, their disciples knew they were still here. One day, the bell stopped ringing, and so did the breath. The disciples would then seal the chamber. They did not open it right away. They waited 3 years, sometimes longer. When they finally opened the door, if the monk's body remained intact, not decayed, not broken by time, he would be recognized as a Sokushinbutsu, the monks who remain. Today in Japan, about 16 Sokushinbutsu are still preserved. Among them, 2 are especially known: Shinyokai Shonin, who passed away in 1783. His body is kept at Dainichibo Temple on Mount Yudono. Tetsuryukai Shonin, who passed away in 1878. His body rests at Nangakubo Temple, also in Yamagata. Even now, these monks remain, sitting quietly, behind a simple glass case, surrounded by the stillness of the northern mountains. People come to visit. Some bow their heads. Some stand silently, letting their hearts slow down. Because there are some stories that do not need explanations, only quiet listening. When hearing about the Sokushinbutsu, many people pause and wonder, where is the line between letting go and self-destruction? Is the path of transforming one's body into an incorruptible form an act of compassion? Or is it a kind of extremity, something that stretches beyond what we can accept? These are not easy questions. And perhaps they're not meant to be answered definitively. Because when we listen to stories like this, the goal is not to decide what's right or wrong. The goal is simply to listen with an open heart and with respect for differences. From the outside, it's natural to feel uneasy. Hearing about monks who ate tree bark and pine needles, drank small amounts of lacquer sap, and then sat in a sealed stone chamber until the breath stopped. It can sound harsh, even frightening. Not because people lack faith, but because deep down, all of us are wired to protect life. In the modern world, this kind of practice is even harder to accept. That's why, in the late 19th century, when Japan entered a period of national reform, the government stepped in. During the Meiji era, when the country was rapidly modernizing, the authorities saw Sokushinbutsu as a dangerous relic of the past. Between 1877 and 1879, the government of Emperor Meiji issued an official ban on the practice. They wanted to reshape Japan into a modern nation, one that embraced science, medicine, and progress. They viewed the Sokushinbutsu practice as a form of organized self-harm incompatible with the country's new image. In the eyes of the state, even if done for spiritual reasons, the process of intentionally stopping one's life in this way was too close to suicide. From a legal and social perspective, the ban was understandable. But when you step into the inner world of the monks, the story looks very different. For them, this was not death. It was not self-destruction. It was a continuation of their path, a conscious journey to transcend the self, body and mind, so that they could offer their very existence to the world. They weren't doing this to be worshipped. They weren't seeking attention. They simply wanted to sit quietly, long after the breath had stopped, and continue praying for peace. They saw the body not as something to cling to, but as a tool of compassion. If the body remained intact, they believed the energy of loving kindness would still linger in the world. For ordinary people, seeing these bodies, even today, invites reflection, a chance to slow down for a moment, to think about impermanence, to soften the grip on life's daily worries. Even after the government's ban, some monks continued the practice, silently, without public announcements or ceremonies. They simply stepped into the stillness, away from the rules of the outer world, because for them, the law of society is one thing, but the law of the heart, of letting go, of surrender, that is something else. There are choices in life that don't fit into simple categories of legal or illegal, right or wrong. Some choices belong to the deepest parts of the human spirit, where no one else can decide for you. And what about us? As we hear this story, each of us will feel something different. Some may admire the monk's courage. Some may feel unsettled. Some may sit quietly, holding the story in their hearts, and reflect on life, death, and compassion. Because the line between letting go and self-destruction is often just one breath apart. The line between compassion and extremity is sometimes just one step. Yet if someone walks that path with a heart full of loving kindness, then maybe, even if we don't fully understand it, their journey still deserves to be heard with empathy. Perhaps Sokushinbutsu is not a story for judgment, and not something that needs to be explained away. It's just a story to sit with, to hold gently, like a warm cup of tea in the quiet of night, while the wind moves softly outside and the heart slows down. And maybe, somewhere in that stillness, a question will appear. If one day I too must walk through the final doorway, will I be ready to let go of everything? Or is there still something I'm holding on to? Between life, letting go, and the quiet in between, some stories don't need to end with conclusions. They simply need to be told gently, like incense smoke drifting through a quiet room. And then they settle. not with answers, but with something soft that stays in the listener's heart in their own way. The story of Sokushinbutsu is like that. As we come to the close of this journey, each person listening may be carrying a different feeling. Some feel reverence. Some feel uneasy. Some may still be wondering, why would someone do this? And others may find themselves asking, would I be able to let go, even just a little, of the things I cling to every day? There's no single right answer, because each of us walks our own path, carrying our own questions, our own fears, and our own desires. Sokushinbutsu is just one way, one thread, in the many ways that humans have tried to face life and death. Not everyone needs to walk such an extreme path, and the world doesn't necessarily need more incorruptible bodies. Perhaps what the world needs is simply more people who know how to live fully in the moment. People who understand that death is inevitable, but who also realize there's no need to fear it or run from it. People who learn that letting go doesn't have to mean giving everything up. Sometimes it just means loosening the grip on the heaviness we carry. In daily life, we often find ourselves caught in cycles of having to do, to achieve, to hold on. We clutch everything so tightly, sometimes to the point of exhaustion, without realizing that sometimes, when we let go just a little, we can finally breathe easier. The Sokushinbutsu chose to let go completely. That was their path. For the rest of us, perhaps it's enough to simply release one small burden at a time. And that too can be a sacred journey. Maybe, as we sit quietly, with a warm cup of tea, we can listen to our own hearts. What am I still holding on to? What is weighing me down right now? And if we can soften our grip, even for just a moment, perhaps that's already enough. Because letting go isn't about leaving this life behind. It's about living it more fully in each moment we still have, without carrying more than we need. The story of Sokushinbutsu is just one piece of the larger human experience. It shows us that somewhere in this vast world, there are people who chose to go all the way to the edge of letting go. But we don't have to do the same. Maybe it's enough to simply wake up each morning, breathe in, notice the sky changing color, feel the warmth of our own hands, and smile. That's enough. And as another day arrives and quietly fades away, we can remind ourselves we don't have to hold on to everything. We don't need to fear the ending, because sometimes things are only truly complete when we allow them to gently slip from our hands.